This video series attempts to provide an esoteric analysis of the Holy Scriptures, offering an antidote to the distortions promoted by literalist and uninitiated readings. Rooted in the principles of Empyrean dragon magic and aligned with the Illuminist mission of advancing humanity toward unity through rational spiritual gnosis, the series invites viewers to embark on a progressive interpretive journey. Each new video builds upon the last, creating a cumulative hermeneutic architecture that reveals the Scriptures as a coded metaphysical narrative for magic and self-realization. To govern the day and the night, and to separate light from darkness. And God saw that it was good. Genesis en, verse 18. We approach the end of the fourth day of creation, or rather, the fourth stage of the mind's spiritual unfoldment. While the previous verses established operators as reference points within the psychocosmic field, this verse assigns governing roles to them. This establishes hierarchy within our consciousness. This hierarchy is not domination-based, but rather about the emergence of executive function, the lawful ordering of internal processes, the birth of decision-making, and the capability to actively execute our will. This means that consciousness is no longer simply illuminated, but it can now direct itself. The verse states that luminous bodies govern the day and the night. The day, as previously explained, represents illumined consciousness, while the night represents unillumined consciousness. Illumined consciousness is all about clarity, understanding, insight, and reasoning. Unillumined consciousness is all about instinct, lower intellect, impulse, automatic processes, and will. Genesis 1:18 assigns different governing rulers to different domains. Why is this important? When the night tries to rule the day, the mind becomes disorganized, and our life becomes chaotic. Metaphysically, this is explained when instinct and impulse masquerade as insight and clarity, or when the day tries to abolish the night, repression. Whenever we seek to act before we understand or understand without acting. Whenever we act when we need to understand or try to understand when we don't need to act, we become disordered. A healthy mind requires domain-specific authority and the balance between these two polarizing governors. The sun rules the day. It sets meaning and understanding, determines value, and provides insight that is gained through the illumination of the earth, where thoughts, ideas, and concepts flourish. The moon rules the night. It executes, maintains, and sustains activity. It rules over will and intellect and reflects the light of the sun. The moon does not decide what is true, nor does it bestow wisdom and understanding. The moon is responsible for the lower intellect and willful activity, on which the mind then contemplates to gain clarity, wisdom, and understanding. The verse continues to indicate that through their assigned governance over the day and night, they separate light from darkness. Light and darkness already exist. Moreover, in verse 4, God has already separated light from darkness, so why does this division repeat? Well, the separation which occurred in verse 4 was pre-egoic and concerned the collective substrate of reality, rather than the substrate of the psychocosmic field of an individual mind. In verse 4, there were no reference points, and while light and darkness were recognized as different from each other, they were not localized and assigned to their respective faculties. It concerned the emergence of difference within an undifferentiated awareness. The agency was not fully operational back then, and the above was not separate from the below. Therefore, the separation here is purely ontological. By the fourth day of creation, there is already a structured mind space, firmament, and an emerging egoic center, earth. The separation of light from darkness here is cognitive/executive. It is not merely the distinction of light from darkness, but the determination of how they are handled, what they govern, and how they transition. This is similar to the difference between noticing that fire is hot and between installing safety measures, rules, tools, and procedures to use it safely. In verse 18, The distinction separates knowing from not knowing, and the clarity of understanding from the dark, unillumined state of intellectual thinking and willful action. It is the distinction between syntax and semantics, contemplation and experience. As we have explained in previous videos, consciousness evolves through rational contemplation on experience. Experience alone can never bring the mind to consciousness and self-realization. It is by illuminating our experience through reason and logic, through the medium of language, that we can reflect on it and evolve. Without such division, the mind accepts emotions, intuitions, beliefs, and sensory experiences as truth. The capacity for rational thinking is neglected. Most of the human race has renounced the sun of reason and embraced only the moon of emotion, intuition, the senses, and their belief systems. This means that such people have not yet reached the fourth stage of the mind's spiritual unfoldment. Through such a polarity, this verse introduces boundary polarity, partitioning, clarification, and further solidification of the role of the luminous faculties within our psychocosmic field. Once the mind is initiated into the fourth stage, it becomes responsible for discernment of information and understands that not every experience is luminous, nor every impulse or instinct is true that needs to be obeyed or acted upon. In other words, the mind begins to rule over its instinctual and impulsive nature and gain a sufficient level of self-mastery. The verse concludes once again with the words, "And God saw that it was good." Good here signals that the functional system of consciousness is coherent. Light and darkness are correctly divided, governed, and integrated. The mind space is stable, navigable, and legible. Psychologically, this is the integration check. Ego, will, intellect, and perception operate harmoniously.